biking. I am naturally obsessive, hopefully on a less than psychological disturbing way, but I do tend to get very enthusiastic. And actually enthusiastic is a word I much prefer. It literally means infected by the gods. A lot of my obsessions actually grew up around a reaction to touring and the tedium of it. Reading had fascinated me since grade school, really, and I can always remember going to the library on every Tuesday after school and getting a new load of books and all that. But I never really applied any of that into writing at that time, because at age 13 I started drum lessons, and that became the all-consuming obsession. All other interests went by the board. Schoolwork went down the drain. There was only drums. And then when I started touring in the 70s with the band, I immediately found it extremely tedious, because we would have maybe a 20-minute set, and the rest of the time was basically just sitting around waiting, or sitting on airplanes or whatever. So I turned to reading at that time, rediscovered it in my early 20s. So I started reading frantically, but kind of methodically, trying to gather all kinds of fiction, trying to fill in the gaps in my education, and a lot of nonfiction from history, philosophy, geography, natural science. And out of the cloistered kind of travel that a rock tour is, I became interested in adventure travel. And also I started carrying a bicycle on the road with me, and on days off I would go out riding in the countryside. So that got me curious about adventure travel, and that played back into writing. I would guess around 85 I went to China on a bicycle trip, my first adventure travel. And something came together at that time, because I decided I'm not taking a camera, I'm going to try to capture this journey in words. So after that China trip, I wrote the first of a journal of my experiences on it. I traveled then to East Africa after that, and toured around the national parks and the wildlife, and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and wrote that one up. Probably about 6 books that I published privately, just small editions for friends and all that, till 20 years later, in 1996, published my first book, which was about cycling in West Africa, and gathered the experiences mainly of a trip around the country of Cameroon and into war-torn Chad at the time. One nice comment that a few friends have made: "I'm really glad you made that trip so I don't have to." But that's where my taste for travel, which I have always loved since childhood, and then adventure travel took it up a notch, and then writing came into it. That's what I wanted to write about. So after The Masked Rider, then I had certain reverses in life that led to the next book, which is about a motorcycle journey around North America, from the Arctic to Central America and Belize. 55,000 miles of motorcycling and reflection that led me into a new kind of life. And then my one kind of a musical autobiography, I call it, traveling music. I was driving from LA to Big Bend National Park in Texas, and listening to music along the way and thinking about what I wanted to write next. And as I drove, I'm thinking, well, this is a story. The music that I'm listening to, why I chose to listen to it, what it represents to me and my past and my life. And I decided to weave that into, it's really a long song form, this book, of verses, choruses, and bridges and so on. And then I'd always wanted to capture touring life, talk about adventure travel, and talk about a deep experience that I really wished I could share with people, and have tried various ways in songs and in prose over the years. And finally I decided to fully document a tour, which was Rush's 30th anniversary tour. Roadshow was a concert tour by motorcycle, which I thought was or a landscape with drums, which I thought was another interesting play on the common title. But after that, I had the same sort of crisis about what do I want to write about now, having captured so much. And then I thought, well, I'll just take a break and write short pieces. So that I found after about 3 or 4 years, suddenly I had a book's worth of stories. And that became the next volume. This was the special limited edition with the drummer's bass drum crest on the front. And it became a book far and away that included stories that ranged so far from not just motorcycle travels and not just drumming stories, but cross-country skiing up in Quebec and snowshoeing up in Quebec. They're all my adventures, let's face it, musical adventures, touring adventures. They're all something that I wish to share with others. My two-wheeled obsession really began around the mid-'80s. Started using a bicycle to travel around the city. And then we were out on tour in probably '84, a day off in Salt Lake City. I thought, I want to go for a bicycle ride. So I found a bicycle store open on a Sunday, and then started riding every day after that, and then started building up into greater distances. And then around the mid-'90s, that transferred into motorcycling, and I started riding, having always wanted to, and said I would ride a motorcycle when I was grown up. And by my mid-40s, I figured I was as grown up as I was going to get. So I started riding, and again, my ambition kept increasing, where I wanted to ride greater distances, farther places. So in the mid-90s, I started riding in the off-season adventures up to the Arctic and around Mexico that spring, and then around Europe down to Tunisia and North Africa into the Sahara. And then around that time had the idea that, this might work on tour. That if I traveled on my own and had a bus and a trailer, I could carry a motorcycle and ride every day, ride to the shows, ride between the shows. So it became a total escape from the combination of tedium and circus that is rock touring. And also what an entree into the wonderful world of the national parks of North America, the scenery, the small towns, and immediately I gravitated toward the small roads. Again, GPS came along, was a huge addition to my touring repertoire, because suddenly I could trace the tiniest little roads on the map. But every day is that kind of adventure, and when I get a new itinerary, I don't look at where the concerts are, I look at the days off between them, what I can do on that day. It's not one big happy adventure. When I get up on the bus in the morning and roll my bike out of the trailer, there's no place I'd rather ride than home. But the point is I have a job to do that day and a place to show up and work. So that being the reality, how can I best make use of that day? And touring life famously can be very cloistering and very alienating. And a lot of musicians over the years have suffered from that in different ways. When you travel the way I do, that's never a danger. I'm in gas stations every day, I'm in diners, I'm in motels, I'm talking to people at rest areas. Sure, I show up at a rock concert and play in front of 10,000 people or whatever. But in between those times, I'm a guy, riding in the rain or riding in 15-degree heat and stopping at the gas station and looking for a motel, the kind of regular things that regular people do.